question now is not on everybody's mind, of course. The question is raising a child work? And what they're saying is, yes, it is. And it goes a lot farther than that. And they say, now we get into it again. Take away all the misconceptions, all the misinformation, the misteaching, and get to the core of the problem. There was a need for cheap labor in our example countries so the game players could make more money. The players tried child labor, but the common man saw through that effort and banned it. What did they say? This is one of those areas where, you say we can't beat City Hall, we have no effect, we blah, 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 and everybody believes it. And yet here they're standing right here and saying there's a need for cheap labor, and the game players hired children instead of the working man, made them work 16 hours a day, 12 hours, made that child work 12 hours a day, and gave them pennies. And they did the work, and the money people, the game players, were happy as could be. But the common man saw through that and said, no way, let's put an end to that now. Now what have you got? You've got the common person, the person that can't change anything, telling the rich and the game players, you're not going to do that. And they didn't. See, it's like you draw the curtain down so you can't see the fact that you did it, and nobody talks about the fact that you did it, and it's never on television that you did it. But with the common laborer, the common man, seeing his child go to work for 12 hours a day and get pennies, he said that's just not going to fly. And the question they ask is the same question you hear over and over again. Why in the world was labor ever put on the free trade market? They say we'll never know why, but it was. So now we have an adversary relationship between the worker and the employer. Well, of course, the employer wants to make as much money as he possibly can. Every penny that he has to pay his employees comes right out of his pocket. And there's the attitude of the employer, and the worker is saying, look, I make, it's like, realistically, if you get down to it, I make you $20 an hour, and you give me $7, and then you take the rest. But I make you $20 an hour. You're not doing anything while I'm making you $20 an hour. But you take that money and you give me $7 an hour, and you say that's right. Okay. they get down. The thing is that as you get advertised to, you get to as you watch television, you see these things, which is where advertising is done mostly, and you see these workers working, and they get $7, $8 an hour, and you see them doing comic things and just living their life and struggling along. You never see the worker standing there taking the difference between the $20 an hour they make and the, let's say, $10 they pay. The employer's putting $10 in his pocket for every single hour that person's working. And you never see that on television, because that's what advertising is about. What you see is the worker happily struggling through his life, living on next to nothing, but that's what they want you to see. Oh, you can do that. Oh, yeah, that's the way it should be. What do you mean that's the way it should be? Well, it's got to be the way it should be because I've seen it on television. Now, do you understand what they're talking about when they say advertising? See, everybody thinks it's the Pepsi ad. No. They're saying that the advertising they're doing, you don't even know it's advertising. It's the common laborer working in McDonald's, struggling through his life situations, and absolutely never see the owner of McDonald's there, that particular one, stuffing the money in his pockets for every hour that person works. Nobody shows the second part. That's called advertising. That's That's what they're calling advertising. They're showing you the way it should be as far as somebody's concerned. And as they show it to you every day in every show, you get to the point where you believe it. Now do you understand why we say it's not your fault? Advertising works. So we'll go back to working then. So we have the child no longer working. We have the man working. The man was working long to what he was supposed to be doing, and they go on as the war. The war now is between the laborer and the person who owns the business. Dirty shame, but that's the way it is. So they say as the war goes on for a while, an interesting thing begins to happen. First, the employee, the employer who treats his employees worst, made the most money. Reward for atrocities? What a concept to put in brackets. If they paid less and drove their employees harder and furnished less safety equipment and training, they made more money. Or perhaps they could sell their product for less because the whole thing was cheaper for them to make, and then they could put the competition out of business, and then they made more money. They did that too. Anyway, labor and working conditions were on the open market, and that concept was abused horribly. So first we have them attempting to put children to work that didn't work. Then they have given you horrible work hours and horrible safety equipment and horrible training, and just beating the living hell out of you. And that's the second thing that and having working conditions on the open market, which you'll understand shortly. Now we have double war. First, they remember what the employees did trying to get the children to work. Now we remember very clearly, because it happens every day, that the employer doesn't give a 2 cents worth of anything about the worker unless the worker isn't working. And he doesn't get his $10 an hour. So you have this war. So so then they say, okay, now because of that abuse, the labor began to find ways to get even. And now we look at the labor side. Theft and sabotage were common. Then came the unions, and another strange concept was born. If labor is on the free market, then the more labor is in any one field, the less you have to pay for that labor. Anybody knows that. You're an employee. You got 1,000 people that are jumping up and down trying to get your job, and so you say, who will work for $10 an hour? And half the people are jumping up and down. And who will work for $9 an hour? And you get it down to the point where you get the 20 laborers you need for $3 an hour, and you're in. Because there's so many of them. Okay, so that's labor on the marketplace. That's the way the marketplace works. Now, the other side of that coin is the less laborers there are in the field, in any given field, the more you're going to have to pay for that labor. The unions joined great masses of laborers into one bargaining unit, and in effect made them one person. That person now could bargain for a very good pay and very good benefits. It took some beatings and killings to get the point across, but finally it worked. Now the laborers began to get the upper hand, or so it seems. Then the next thing that happened was man now paid for his labor, and the child was, well, the woman who was raising the children in the home back then didn't get any pay, of course. The man got the pay. But, that system worked. You had a family, you had the man working, you had the woman taking care of the children, and all was good. And they say, you have to remember now that we're dealing with the scum that's left after 51,736 some odd years of counseling, and karma have passed. If you don't know what that means, you have to go to book 1, 2, and 3. It's not as bad. Well, I was going to say it's not as bad as it sounds, but actually I guess it is. Anyway, that tremendous majority that's left here on earth is dominion bent. No woman nor man now learning that a woman is a person too by being one. That's in brackets. No woman, and they say, nor the man that's now learning that a woman is a person too by being one, that's karma, is going to let the man rule if she can help it. Nurturing be damned, this is a power thing. We can't let the men have all that kind of power. The children will just have to deal with it. What are they saying? The mother went to work. The mother started making money. To hell with the children. I have no power. I have no power. I have nothing. The man's out there working, and he's got the money, and he hands me a pittance and tells me to buy shoes for the kids and goes out and gets drunk. You understand what I mean? Is that the only way they did? No, but you can understand the picture that a lot of women are seeing. Man has all the power because he's got the money. So what happened? They said, we can't let the man do that. The children are just going to have to deal with it, and off they went to work. And now we have the destruction of the family, and the government is there to destroy it even further with welfare policies. Now, the wealthy know exactly what they're saying about welfare policies, and the poor, they don't get it because the rich think that the welfare people are doing great, and the welfare people know they aren't. And they don't understand why do we see both sides? Sure. Do you see both sides? Absolutely not. I've never met a wealthy person that saw the poor side. I never saw a poor person that saw the wealthy side. They absolutely do not have a clue what each other is doing. So, what does the employer now have? If you look at it, you will see that now both the man and the woman are working, and they still have to raise a family. What is that? Didn't the man work alone and make enough to raise a family? And now you are saying that it takes both a man and a woman to do the same thing? Score one for the employer, and that's in red. Score one for the employer. Why is the woman working? Because she's not going to give up the power that the man has. So what happened? You ended up with the man and the woman working, and they're raising a family. Almost. Of course, the man was working and the woman wasn't working, and they were raising a family. So that, the employer's got two people for the price of one. Score one for the employer. And so it goes with the problem so intertwined that no one can see the truth. What is the truth? The truth is that the lower level of labor should never have been put on the open market. Man isn't a commodity. Man isn't a thing to be treated thusly. Man's labor isn't a thing to be traded either. We are trying to take at least the lower part of the labor off the market. Let the rest bargain for it if they want. If they get it, so be it. We chalk it up to experience, education, good looks, quality talking. You can chalk it up to anything you want. There are people that have skills, and they should be paid more. They should be paid more. There's nothing more you can say about it. So let's say that you've got this lower level of a tremendous number of workers that don't have any higher level things that a business needs, so they're just common workers. And what they say is that if they don't have these specialties, then they still should be getting the minimum level of payment. No union should be allowed up there bargaining for wages. What they say? No unions. No, they didn't say no unions. They said no unions up there bargaining for wages. Let the employee bargain one-on-one for their true value of what their ability, what we were talking about before, their education, their looks, their ability to talk, they may be baseball players or basketball players or football players. They have a skill, and they're rare, and they need to have that skill paid for. Well, okay, they're bargaining. Go ahead, no problem. The employer will pay what he has to pay to get that thing. So you have that side of it, and then you have these common laborers that have no specialty, no nothing, but the people that have a skill or some talent, are getting more, but they're doing it one-on-one. There's no union allowed up there. So that solves part of the problem. Now let's look at the other part. If a woman is bound and determined to go out there and joust the windmill, so be it. And you have to you got to go find somebody that reads enough to know what joust the windmill means, and you know what they're talking about. They're saying that basically what she's doing is not worth it. What she's doing is she's doing something to get equal power with a man, and there's other ways to do it besides dumping your children and going out there and working for nothing, which, if you will, is exactly what they're doing. Because if the man could take care of the whole family by himself working and the woman stayed at home, the second the woman no longer stays at home and is out there working, you should have double the money, and you just have enough to support the family. You understand that therefore you are working for nothing, and you are buying a second car, which you wouldn't need if you weren't working, and you're having to pay for a babysitter, which you wouldn't have to do if you were working, if you weren't working. And when you add all those things up, you get to the point where you realize, oh, I'm working for nothing. No, you're working so that you can be equal to a man. You're working so you can have the same power a man does. To hell with a child. And so they say our concern is for the woman or man who understands the truth and sees the true value of raising our children. And here they go into that area again, which you want to talk about nobody understands. Advertising has destroyed this concept. They want to bring it back. Children are our most valuable resource by a factor of 10. They're more valuable than our gold, more valuable than the coal, more valuable than the oil, more valuable than the trees, the farms, the food. Economically speaking, they hold the promise of more wealth than any other thing out there. The need, and they put in brackets economically, is to raise them to see their true potential and be able to make use of it. If we truly knew what a child, or a human for that matter, was, this book would be totally unnecessary. That's true. Read book 1, 2, and 3, you begin to say, oh, boy, that's true. A child care system will rarely accomplish the task of raising a child to reach his or her true potential. And you can hear the child care people screaming and hollering, but, is the child care system equal to a parent that's at home that is trained, that is, well, let's get the concept clear. If the child is more valuable by a factor of 10, then you're going to take some time to educate the parent who's raising the child to see to it that we can get that child up to the level of their ability. That's something we don't do because we don't care. But now all of a sudden they change it and say, look, not only is the farmer critical to your country's wealth, and the coal miner and the oil driller, those guys that don't get paid anywhere near what they're worth, you've got it all twisted around. You've got these people making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're doing nothing for your economy. They're doing nothing but just, stuffing money in their pockets from you. And then the people that are really increasing the value of this country and the economy, you don't give them squat. You ask a farmer if they don't do that. They just get mad. Okay, never mind. The child care system will rarely accomplish the task of raising a child to reach his or her true potential. We need to have mothers and fathers who understand that truth. We need to design our society to reflect that truth, and that's where we fail. Don't give our child the toys, the safety, the sterility, the empty life culled out of our guilt for being parents who work. Give them a chance instead. So now the whole concept of children and the raising of them and the change. So what did we get here? We got the concept that's totally new. These people are too valuable to just let somebody raise them and, hope. All they're doing is babysitting them and maybe give them a little bit of education. We don't take the raising of a child seriously, and we need to. So in our society, we need to change that view, and we need to realize that the raising of a child is more valuable to us as a country than the other parent that's out there working. Now, think about that. Does that change your view? Okay. So they say, do we run away from the tough parts of life? No, do they ever run away from discussing the things that we don't want to talk about? Absolutely not. They're right in there doing it. If children are potentially our most valuable resource, then what should we be doing to reach that potential? They say step one is to make it possible to have one of the family be able to stay home and raise that child. That means that if the person is the only person in the family, they get paid a minimum level to be able to live a minimum level of existence. Paid now, because they're working. Everybody's thinking, well, we pay these welfare mothers and they don't do anything to raise their child. Well, okay, the first thing is you don't have another partner out there working. That's what they kind of excluded that. So you have the mother who for some reason doesn't have a partner, or the father, the person taking care of the child anyway. And that person is being paid to raise that child by our government if he's not working. You understand that they go up to like 6 years old, and then they go to school for half a day, and then pretty soon they're going most of the day, and the man could be working, or the woman could be working then at a job that wasn't government pay. So it isn't that long. The government isn't paying that much. Okay. But we need to look at it and say that's extremely important. Don't be looking down on the woman. Don't be giving the man all the, don't be giving the man all the yay you because he's got money. I know that'll change. In our society, you bring the woman up to the level of the man in everything because the woman's raising the child, or vice versa. It could be the man raising the child. The child raiser really should be held higher in esteem than anybody else. Now, how about that? The child raiser is going to be higher than your doctor, your lawyer, and the congressman, and the businessman who makes $1 million a year. The woman or the man that raises the child is going to be considered more important. Boy, would that be. But here's the problem. Here comes the wealthy, people, the wealthy money, the people that steal your money, and they're saying those are welfare mothers, those lazy welfare, morally bankrupt mothers with 6 snotty brats from 6 different fathers. And why are they, and do they, am I pretending? No, that's exactly the way they see them. Why are they screaming? Because they have to support those mothers. That's why they're screaming. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. So, over on the other side, you have, but let those who gave me this information go on, and you'll see that they see that problem. They see what needs to be done. So they say, we said they need to be supported, and then everything changes right there. We really need to set conditions, and those conditions are very specific for 2 reasons. First, we want to put an end to the supporting of the atrocities of our children, what they're put through. They're tortured, they're raped, they're beaten, they're forced to endure things in the name of schooling, and on it goes. We would suggest that the heads come up out of the sand. They do that a lot too. They would suggest that we get our heads up out of the sand and the people wake up to the truth. We would have every child who's allowed to be born to have a chance at a life with no atrocities from beginning to end. That's first. No atrocities. Now, if they think that school is a torture of some kind, we definitely got to take a look at, and now we're saying as a society we're going to get rid of those atrocities. We're going to get rid of school, and they say we're going to get rid of the way it is now. Okay, well, the second thing they want is they want the child to have a chance to reach their full potential. What does that mean? We want to put an end to so many things that are not only allowed right now, but actually promoted. The first, now they're going to talk about these things that we allow. The first one is the reduction in the number of people in this country. That's what they want to change. They want to reduce the number of people in this country. And they want to extend that concept to all the other countries on the earth. Well, if you've read the government side, and you know that we can't go in and we're no longer allowed to interfere with other countries' governments. So how are we going to do that? And they say, look, you got the concept, and you get the concept out there in the world, and this country says, leave us alone. We're going to have as many kids as we want. And you say, okay. And pretty soon there's people coming out of that country because there's not enough food. And you say, the borders have to be locked now, and nobody can pass into any other country from this country. This borders are locked. What does that mean? That means that the people that are in that country that are starving are going to stay in that country and starve. And they say, whoa, you can't do that. You can't let those people starve. And you say, well, this is what they said. The borders are locked and no one passes out or into another country. Why? Because they learned, and because they're going to learn in their smaller area what happens to the world if overpopulation is allowed to continue. So ends the problem in other countries too. Cruel. We have only one spaceship to ride on. You got to love them when they do this. We didn't have that view until we got out into what they say, to the moon, and look back at the Earth. We have only one spaceship to ride on. It's called Earth. When we overpopulate our spaceship, Earth, the same thing happens, only on a much larger scale. What same thing? Everybody's starving, and there's no other spaceship. There's no other planet that you can go to. There's no other way to leave here and use up the resources of another planet. You understand what they're saying? You only got Earth. And if you don't reduce the population and quit this insane, like as if we were so important that we can destroy the Earth and nothing will happen to us. Nothing but, if you eat nothing but sugar all day long, okay. Let's say that you smoke a cigar and drink whiskey all day long, and you never do anything else. And then you tell me that that's not a problem, and, everything will be okay. And then very shortly you have cancer, or you die of cirrhosis of the liver. And you're like, well, what happened? Well, it's the grow up thing. We have to grow up and face the problem of too many people, or it will be solved another way. And that's what they're saying, or it'll be solved another way. Well, the guy died of cirrhosis of the liver. It was solved another way. What other way, you ask? They say the Illuminati will see to it with an economic crash, starvation, or a manufactured pandemic, or all three. What did they say there? Go look up the Illuminati. It's just another name for the overchargers. The overchargers will see they'll cause an economic crash, and they can do that. They can cause starvation, no problem. And they can manufacture a virus that we can't cure and let it go, except for them, they get a shot. Or they might do all three. Or, they say, and you're not going to like this, Or the earth will take care of it as easily as shaking fleas off a dog's back. That was what the flood was all about, wasn't it? Whoa. Okay, so what they're basically saying is you will take care of this overpopulation thing, or it will be taken care of. And they have a system for taking care of it in other countries, because you can't go in there and say, you got to, cut your population down. You can't go in there. You can't go into the other country. Why did they say that anyway? How come we can't do that? The biggest reason is we need choices. And that's the part that you never get. We need choices. What does that mean? That means we need other countries that do things different. Just like we need other states in this United States of ours, we have states that are in more control because we want different philosophies for those people in those states. Different choices. So you don't touch the other country, you let them do whatever they want. And if part of the karmic lesson that you've got to learn is about food, you go to a country that's overpopulated, you're born there, and you do the things that are all wrong, and you die of starvation.